Very good evening, viewers. Today's topic of discussion is state and religion under Akbar. Today we have with us a very esteemed guest who is Professor S.M. Azizuddin Hussain, who is Professor of History in Medieval Indian History in the University Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. Professor Azizuddin Hussain has written number of books, as many as 14 books to his credit, and he has done extensive work on religion, particularly Aurangzeb is his favorite topic. He has not only written a separate book on Aurangzeb, but he has a very good command over the Persian language, and on the basis of he has annotated number of Persian documents, number of Aurangzeb's Persian letters. It would be a great pleasure to welcome Professor Azizuddin today. We are going to have discussion on state and religion, not under Aurangzeb, but under Akbar, one of the most important ruler during the medieval period, Mughal ruler, and Akbar, who is known for his liberal attitude towards his subjects. So, but before we come to the topic and we start the discussion with Professor Azizuddin, there are certain important things that we have to keep in mind. When we speak about the religion during the medieval period or during the pre-colonial period, the common perception is that the rulers were Muslims. So the religion of the medieval period or the state religion was Islam. But this perception is erroneous. While analyzing and assessing the religion and state, there are certain important features or important things that we have to keep in mind. First of all, what was the people's attitude towards religion? What was the ruler's attitude towards religion? What was the personal beliefs of a particular emperor or a particular ruler? Then another important aspect, particularly for medieval period, it is very important that what was the perception of the Mughal rulers towards the non-Muslims. These are the important things that we have to keep in mind while analyzing the state's perception or the ruler's perception towards the religious classes and religious communities. Another important aspect that we have to keep in mind is that there are certain modern concepts and terminology that we often try as a historian, as a researcher, as a student, often try to apply to the medieval period, like fanaticism, communalism, secularism. These concepts, when we try to look into the meanings, what we perceive during the modern period and what was the perception during the medieval period, if we try to analyze these features and try to search these features in medieval period, then we often, there is the possibility that we often tend to draw wrong conclusions, or our conclusion may turn out to be erroneous. So we have to, while using these modern terminology, particularly in the context of the medieval period, we have to be very careful. Then another state of affairs that we have, while we are analyzing religion, we have to keep in mind that as far as the medieval period is concerned, majority of the people were religious minded. there was there was a certain importance given to the religion, and the medieval rulers, realizing the people's perception, realizing that they had the special inclination, or they are religious, they often utilized and exploited those religious sentiments for their political gains. That we are going to look into when we are going to analyze Akbar's relationship with the religion and religious communities. This is very, very important. In the particularly, we often we often come across that the battle cry of jihad, the religious war. In what context, and why? This is the important aspect related to jihad, is that most of the times that these were not the religious wars, but to exploit the particular situation for their political gains. The rulers have used the war cry of jihad. So these terminologies, in what context they were used, these are very, very important. We have to keep in mind when we are going to analyze the state and religion. I am taking a little bit of your time, because in the medieval context we have to keep certain things in mind before analyzing religion. Then another very important aspect related to medieval period is that often we tend to fall prey of the contemporary chroniclers' terminologies and the words they have used. We have to keep in mind that medieval chroniclers who were writing, they were trained in the madrasas, and they were the religious persons. So often the terminology they use commonly, for example, Lashkar-e-Islam, army of Islam, or for the opposition's army they use the word, they tend to use the word Lashkar-e-Kufr, army of the infidels. Similarly, when the soldier from their own side used to die, they use the word shahadat, or the soldier have achieved shahadat, and if the soldier of the opposite army died, they use the terms the soldier has gone to hell. So all these terminologies, these are contexts that are very, very important, that we have to keep in mind when we are going to analyze the religion. Otherwise we will our conclusion may turn out to be erroneous. With this, keeping these facts in mind, relating to state and religion, we have to be very careful while analyzing the contemporary chroniclers' comments or analysis, or the words that the chronicler has used. And we have to keep in also mind the political, socio-economic considerations while analyzing certain policy of the contemporary rulers. With this, Professor Azizuddin, I would like to ask you that as far as Akbar is concerned, as I just mentioned, that our perception, common perception is that he was very, very liberal. So what are the major facets, or what are the facets of his policies towards non-Muslims, towards the religion and religious community, that made him actually liberal, and why we call him liberal? Professor Azizuddin, please.
Dr. Akbar Singh, thank you very much for inviting me. Now, as far as the question which you have raised, we find that during Sultanate period, when the Albaris and the other rulers, sultans, they were ruling, so we find lot of literature in fiqh, like Fatawai Firoz Shahi or Fatawai Tatar Khani, but no attempt was made to understand Indic religions, or to define the status of Hindus in the Sultanate. I think credit goes to Akbar, who first of all made this attempt to understand the Hindu religion or the Indic religions and to define Hindus, because he knew that he is the ruler of Hindustan and naturally the majority population belongs to the followers of the Indian religion. So basically he made an attempt first of all to understand the Indic religions so that he can follow up a policy. Now as far as his policies are concerned, so we find that naturally he was very young when he became the Mughal emperor. So during the period of the regency he could not get much time to frame his own policy or the state policy, but when he became the full-fledged emperor, or he had taken the reins of the Mughal government in his own hands, so he tried to understand the interpretation of Islam and also the meaning of Islam and the position of non-Muslims in the Islamic State. Because we find that the Islamic State came into existence in 622 AD when Prophet Muhammad established Islamic State at Medina. And there we find Prophet had given a charter to the people of Medina, and the people, those who were the members of this state were Muslims, Jews, Christians and the Jews. So Akbar had taken his position from 622 AD that this was their status, and Prophet Muhammad had given full freedom of religion to Christians, Jews and the pagans, and full freedom of religion as well as protection of life and property of the non-Muslims. So Akbar did not follow the position of the non-Muslims in the Muslim state defined by the ulama. He had taken the example from 622 AD.
But do you think that from this, when you are saying that he has between his policy, if we analyze Akbar's entire reign, then we find that there are phases in his, it is not continuously development we are not finding. Sharply we can find that from 1560 to 65 his attitude was different, then suddenly the attitude was changing. So whether do you also find that his views and ideas were growing as he was growing?
No, as far as the stages are concerned, so that I don't agree with the theory of stages. Because there is a flow in the policies of Akbar, and naturally a young person, and when he was a middle-aged person. So, and one influence which we find in Akbar was the writings of the Persian poets, and this is the period when the gates of India were opened for the Iranian ulama, hukama and the umara, and they were coming from Iran, from Central Asia and other parts of the Muslim world. And Akbar also welcomed all these ulama and the hukma, and they not only came alone, they brought lot of books, and those books which were written by the scholars and the poetic compositions of poets like Hafiz and Sadi and Umar Khayyam and other poets. Now naturally what happened, when this literature came to India, Akbar also read those books, and in that poetry of the Persian poets we find one important aspect of their poetry is the concept of sulh, peace. And this concept was not new, which was introduced by Akbar, because this concept was already there in Iran, and we find in the writings of the Iranian hukama and ulama. So when this literature comes to India, and when Akbar reads, so we find that Akbar's inclination towards all these aspects relating to the peace.
So you mean to say that Akbar was greatly influenced by these intellectual writings and also with the association with these intellectual writers.
Yes.
Also, but do you, besides these intellectuals, don't you see that there were certain political factors that were also instrumental in determining his policy towards various religious religious communities, because if we see that 1585 rebellion of the Mirzas, and during the early phases, when you are saying that the phases are not important and you don't agree with Iqtidar Alam Khan's analysis that Akbar's policies could be studied, understood in a better way. If we understand, if we look into various phases, then if we see that the first phase, when the rebellions were there, he has to suppress the various rebellions, he has to suppress the power of the various chiefs, and here we find that the Rajput factor comes into, and that's why Rajputs, he has encouraged Rajputs to use him against the rebellions, and to have a faithful army of the Rajputs, so that he can suppress these rebellions. So these political exigencies were not instrumental at all. You agree with this?
No, I think as far as the political exigencies are concerned, there may be some play of these factors, but basically Akbar has formulated one policy, and he was going and he was following that policy. Even when he became the sovereign ruler, and also almost all the Rajput chieftains, they became subservient to the Mughal emperor. But even then we find that Akbar is following that policy. And as far as the Ibadat Khana is concerned, and Sulekul is concerned, so which he adopts at a later stage, when these Rajputs have already they were having friendly relations with the Mughal Emperor Akbar. So this shows that political compulsions were not there.
But there are, if we see the two phases, 60 to 65 and 66 to 69 particularly, in the first phase, whether you agree or not, but these are the years when Akbar was granting favors, abolishing the pilgrimage tax, abolishing jizya, he has ordered that the prisoners of war should not be enslaved, and all these decrees he was issuing. Then after 65, then we see the contrast situation that he was issuing the famous Fathnama, calling against Chittor when he has attacked, that he has issued the Fathnama. All these, so there was a contrast in the policies. And why I'm saying contrast, that this is while on the one side he was issuing Fathnama, on the other side, this is the phase 66 to 69 when large number of the Rajputs were inducted in the nobility. So how you will...
now as far as you have taken Fathnama of Chittor, basically a period is having some trend, and that trend naturally one has to follow. For example, we are having missiles, both India and Pakistan. So Pakistan has named that missile as Gauri, and we have named that as Agni. So these are the terms which are used by both the countries in the 20th and 21st century. Now as far as the text of the Fathnama of Chittor is concerned, so naturally it was the situation of the medieval period. When you have to write or compose a Fathnama, for example, some people were writing Shahnama of Islam and other things. So they were all following the same tradition. Even Akbar, as is written by Badauni that he did not follow religion, it is all wrong. So we find that the texts are concerned, as far as the texts are concerned, so nobody can follow a new line as far as these texts are concerned. Even when I was looking the mutiny papers, the text and the titles which were used by the Indian people, it were also just like the text of the Fathnama of Chittor. The way they were opposing the Britishers, they are declaring the Britishers as the Kafirs, and
But
let us fight with the Kafirs.
but it is not just that in Fatnama only he is Fathnama only he is using couching this addressing it jihad, using the Rajput army as army of the Kufr. But on the other hand, we the same time we are also finding he was addressing to the Qazi of Bilgram that he should not he should oppose the Hindus who were the idol worshippers and all that. This is the period when he is simultaneously issuing all these decrees. So don't you see there was a certain change from 65 to 66 and 69, when in 68 he was issuing Fathnama and other similar decrees.
No, as far as the addressing to the Qadi of Bilgram is concerned, I haven't seen the text of that letter or whatever, or Farman of Akbar. But as far as my study of Akbar's reign is concerned, so I do not find any contradiction what type of policy he was following from the very beginning. And we find that when he abolished pilgrimage tax in 1563 and abolished jizya in 1564, and we find that Akbar is also facing problem from the ulama. They were opposing, but Akbar didn't care for the opposition of the ulama, and he was going ahead.
But you agree then to appease this important section of the ulemas, because in 66 we find Badayuni is mentioning that jizya was extracted from the territory nearby Agra. So there was a subtle change for certain reasons, maybe political or to appease a certain section, whether it is ulama or any other section. But there was a definite change, and could be possibly that when after this phase of appeasement policy, if you agree with this, that he was following an appeasement policy to appeasing the ulama, then after that when he found that a strategy, whatever he was finding to appease ulama, because this policy of appeasing ulama terminates into the climax we can see in the establishment of Ibadat Khana in 1575. So could you highlight on the whole process of that leading from 66 that started and that culminated in 1575 in the establishment of Ibadat Khana, because in Ibadat Khana, when it was established, it was as the gates were open only for the ulemas. So could you highlight and elaborate on this issue?
Now, as far as you have quoted few cases of the collection of jizya after 1564 is concerned, naturally we should keep in our mind the problems of the state administration to implement the policy which was followed by the emperor. Even today in the 21st century we see that certain decisions are taken by the government, but if you go to the village, so those decisions are not implemented even today. So if few cases are there, but even then we find there are some farmans of Akbar relating to the demolition of a temple belonging to the Jains. And when Akbar came to know, then he had sent an order that stopped them from demolishing the temples. So
this is which year?
After 1564.
After
there were certain forces in the administration, those who were not ready to follow the directives of Akbar. But Akbar had sent, when the report came and when it was complained by some Jainis that this is going on in our area, so Akbar. So naturally, the persons, those who were employed in the Mughal government, they were all not in favor of the policies which Akbar was going to implement, or which Akbar has enacted in the Mughal Empire. Now, as far as the Ibadat Khana is concerned, now this is the very important step taken by Akbar, because since the foundation of Turkish Sultanate in Delhi in 1206, we find that no platform was provided for any discussion. So first of all, Akbar invited the Sunni ulama. They should come, because even among the Sunni ulama there were 4 or 5 schools like Hanbali, Shafi'i, Hanafi, Maliki and others. There were also subdivisions also. So first of all, Akbar invited the Sunni ulama that you come and discuss certain things. Because when some decisions were taken by the Qazis, so they used to say that it is not there in the Hanafi law. It is there in the Hanbali law. So Akbar said that no, you sit down and come to some consensus so that we can make one law. But when he found that even there is so much division among the Sunnis, so he invited Shia ulama. So another division came, and naturally they followed the Jafri fiqh. So there was so much fight among the ulama, both Sunni and Shia ulama, that Akbar had to issue an order to Badaini that any person who misbehaves in the discussion, so he should be ousted from the discussion. So once Akbar, when he retired from the Ibadat Khana and asked Badaini to keep decorum of the Ibadat Khana, so some alim asked Badaini that Akbar had given you this direction and these ulama are fighting. So Badaini said that if I follow the directive of Akbar, so I have to ask all the ulama to vacate Ibadat Khana because they are not following the decorum of the Ibadat. Then Akbar had invited Hindus to the Ibadat Khana.
But that is after 1579.
Yes.
If we see that 1575 is the year when he established Ibadat Khana,
Yes.
particularly he invited the ulemas, Sunni ulemas, to discuss, deliberate upon on the theological aspects, and that culminated in 1579 in the form of measure. So before we switch on to how he got disgusted with what was happening at Ibadat Khana, prior to that it led to till in 1579 the issuance of measure. So first could you highlight on his attitude and why there was a need and why he issued measure and what was actually measure?
Because we see one case of a Brahman of Mathura, that Qazi Abdul Nabi passed the fatwa that he should be killed. Now, and Akbar had to, under forced circumstances, has to sign that fatwa. Then he had invited an open discussion. Ibadat Khana, there was limited discussion, just in front of his residence, and all the ulama and they were all invited, and ultimately it was decided that no, the decision taken by Sheikh Abdul Nabi was wrong. Then Akbar said that it means these ulama, they are taking wrong decisions, and on wrong decisions they are taking my signature also. So then he thought that now there is a need that some eminent scholars, they should also sit down. So Sheikh Mubarak also entered the Mughal court. So he, either whether he suggested or Akbar himself suggested it to Sheikh Mubarak. So he drafted, Sheikh Mubarak drafted the text of the measure. Now as far as there 2 points are there in the measure of Akbar's reign. One is the status of the mustahid, because after the compilations of the 4 fiqh, that is the Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i and Hanbali, the gates of Ijtihad were closed. That now there will be no mustahid, and whatever Imam Abu Hanifa, whatever Imam Shafi'i, whatever Imam Maliki or Imam Hanbal said and recorded, it is now final. Now no interpretation, no thing will come on any issue. So Akbar thought that when we are following different things, we are progressing, so how it can be finalized and how can we follow the things which were laid down in 8th century AD. And they also laid down the principle of taqleed, that is the faithful following. But we find that Sheikh Mubarak and Abul Fadl, they disagreed the concept of taqleed and the faithful following. They said that everybody should apply his own mind and they should take the decision. So in this text of the measure, this istihad and the concept of adl also came. So Akbar was also declared as mustahid, that he will be able in a position to interpret and take the decision. But as is said by the historians from the very beginning, they all say that Akbar was declared as Imam Adil. I have examined the text of the measure, and the only Badayuni has given the text of the measure in his work Muntakhab al-Tawarikh. But there is no term of Imam Adil is used, which is being used by all the historians like Professor R.P. Tripathi, Professor Nurul Hasan, Professor A.L. Srivastav, and Professor Akhtar Alam Khan.
So you...
and the term which is used is Sultan-e-Adil, not Imam Adil. I don't know how these historians, these eminent historians, have taken the term of Imam Adil from the measure, when Badayuni has not given as he has given the text, the term is Sultan-e-Adil. And that is right, that these ulama who have signed the text of the measure declared Akbar as Sultan-e-Adil.
So, but the concept of adl and mushtahid. Mushtahid is very important because he then reserved the right as an interpreter.
Yes.
Of the law.
Yes,
That the last word would be his.
Yes.
So this is a great transition. Do you think that the Mahzar itself was a great transition phase or turning point that ultimately led to?
No, I think the istihad or the declaration of Mustahid was not a new transition or new change, but we find it was the part of the tradition, because istihad was the part and parcel of the tradition of Islam. But after 8th century AD, the gates of the istihad were closed. But during 16th century, credit goes to Akbar that he again opened the gate of istihad.
So to opening this man,
Yes.
that means he was annoying the ulemas.
Of course.
And we
Yes.
after Mahzar, he has, when he proclaimed that he is the Mushtahid,
Yes.
or if not Imam Adil, Sultan Adil,
Yes.
we know that Banayuni himself is mentioning that how Akbar has forsaken his own religion. So all these comments, contemporary chroniclers are commenting on that. So definitely from 8th to 16th century, there was a shift,
Yes.
there was a definite shift
Yes.
and change in the policies. As strong a person as Alauddin Khalji, when he was, when Qazi Mughisuddin was asking that he should be very harsh towards the non-Muslims, Hindus and others, when he was mentioning that no, politics and religion are two different things. He is not going to be guided in matters of political affairs. He is not going to be guided by the ulemas. So as strong as a person has dare not to assume the position of a Mushtahid or Sultan-e-Adil. So there was a definite change in the policies that the Delhi Sultans and the Mughal emperors were following on continued. What are your...
No, as far as the line taken by Qazi Mughis was not within the framework of Islam. What type of treatment he was suggesting to Alauddin Khilji to non-Muslims was against the spirit of Islam, was against the spirit of the charter of Medina given by Prophet Muhammad in 622 AD. So historians do not understand that what is being suggested by an alim was totally against the spirit of Islam. But because he was an alim, so historians interpret that this is the interpretation of Islam, and what Alauddin was suggesting was basically a liberal interpretation. Basically, the suggestion given by Qazi Mughis was totally against the spirit of Islam, because Islam never suggests such type of attitude, such type of relationship with the non-Muslims, even in Islamic state. And number two, this Sultanate was neither an Islamic state nor a Muslim state, so there was no question of following the Sharia of Islam.
So do you think that Mughal state was a theological? Do you think that if not the Sultanate, that the Mughal emperors changed their policies, what were continued during the Sultanate period?
It had
Theological
also not,
state.
No, it was not a theological state, because their own theory of kingship was also contrary to the basic precepts of Islam. But as far as this attitude of Akbar is concerned, which he was following with the non-Muslims, it was totally in consonance with the charter of Prophet Muhammad of 622 AD.
So you do not agree that it was a constant evolution. You believe that from the very beginning there is a consistency in Akbar's policy.
Yes.
Whether he was issuing rather he was abolishing jizya. If he had abolished jizya, then why there was need to reintroduce it? And because we know that in 1579 it was abolished completely. So there was definitely he reimposed, and then again it was abolished. So there appears to be a definite change. His policies were we can see certain evolution, but you feel that it was not. So 1579 is not a turning point when he has issued measure. Then he has abolished jizya, and then we find that road was almost clear for his policy of Sulaykul, that on which you
even in my book on Aurangzeb, I have also said that Aurangzeb had no right to collect jizya from Hindus. Why? Because Mughal Empire was not an Islamic state. So whether it is the question of Akbar is concerned or Aurangzeb is concerned, so Mughal Empire has no right to collect jizya from non-Muslims at all. And the decision taken by Akbar for the abolition of jizya was 100% right, because and that is why he had implemented all taxes uniformly. And whatever cases we find for the collection of jizya, that shows that the state was not having full control on the administration of the Mughal Empire, and some persons, those who were involved, those who were having some other ideology, they were playing their own role, and it was naturally out of control for a Mughal emperor who was really ruling from Agra or Fatehpur Sikri.
Do you think that Akbar's policy of after this measure, after the proceeds of Ibadat Khana from 1575 to 79, that ultimately culminated into, whether you agree or I don't know whether you accept this or not, I would like to hear from you, that it led to the establishment of his own Tawheed-e-Ilahi. May not be his own religion, but he definitely, his attempt was to have an army of or a group of people who were very much loyalist to him. I would like to hear from you.
No, as far as my perception of Tawheed-e-Ilahi is concerned, basically we, as Sufis, were having their own silsilas. So he wanted to create such type of a silsila or such type of a group. Otherwise it has nothing to do with religion, because Akbar never declared himself that I am not a follower of Islam at any stage. And that is why he was also a poet. In one verse which he composed, so he said that na dar saf-e kafir na musalman jayam, that neither I am in the company of the Hindus nor I am in the company of the Muslims. I don't know where is my place, because the policies which Akbar was following, so neither the Muslims were agreeing with him nor the non-Muslims were agreeing with him, because he wanted to follow the policy of Sulaykul in the second half of 16th century. Even in Europe, even in England, we find such type of things were not there. That is why Jahangir says that when Protestants and Catholics, Shias and Sunnis are fighting in Central Asia, in Iran, and the Christians are fighting in England, But in my father's empire, Sunnis and Shias are praying in one mosque, Protestants and Catholics are praying in one church.
Then could you highlight on what actually Akbar's perception of Sulhul? We all often sum up the policy of Akbar as Sulhul. So could you elaborate on?
Basically, we find that the preamble of our constitution is basically the target of Akbar, because we find that our constitution is a part and parcel of the policies adopted by Ashok and Akbar, and the culmination is our constitution after we became free. So basically he wanted that all the Indians have equal right to live here and to live freely, to follow their religion freely, and there should not be any sort of restriction on the basis of religion.
And there should not be any contradiction,
discrimination, or anything. Yes.
And he has not given any special preferences to those who accepted his Tawheed-e-Ilahi.
No.
And
even Man Singh, he had given him the highest rank. He refused to accept or to join his order.
Sulhul.
Yes.
So the important points that Professor Azizuddin have highlighted, and it has come out from our discussion. We may agree or disagree. Professor Azizuddin has tried to analyze Akbar's attitude towards state and religion in an entirely from an entirely different perspective. He does not agree with the other historians, particularly Iqtidar Alam Khan and others, that there is any need to assess and study Akbar's policy into phases. His view is from the very beginning his policies reflects complete liberal attitude, and it was not evolving, if I'm correct. It was rather from the very beginning he was following liberal attitude, but still there are many questions that why then from 60 to 65 he appears to be liberal, then why, whether it was the political exigencies or his appeasement policies to handle certain political situation, particularly the rebellion of the Mirzas 1585, very important phase when Akbar had to face one of the most important rebellion. He was under pressure whether these political exigencies were important and instrumental in his turnover or change in his policy, more pro-ulema policy, whether he was again reimposing jizya, or whether he was establishing or issuing Fathnama at Chittor, or whether he was addressing the armies of the infidels or Kufr, or whether that we find in the establishment of later on in 1575 establishment of Ibadat Khana, where he was listening initially to the Sunnis, to this important section of the ulemas, and what followed after 1575 to 1579, that is still a question that whether these proceeds were important and instrumental in changing Akbar's attitude towards religion and other religion communities. And then, in spite of the fact that in 1579 he issued Mahazar, he has declared himself as Mushtahid, if not Imam Adil, as other historians agree. Professor Azizuddin agree that he has never claimed himself as Imam Adil, but Sultan Adil. But still the question remains that it is the 1579 that was turning point, from where I don't agree with Professor Azizuddin on this point, that 1579 is definitely a turning point, and after that he was following a policy of Sulakul, and these are the policies that that were probably provoking Badayuni to state that Akbar has forsaken Islam. With these words, I thank you, Professor Azizuddin, and thank you, viewers, for being with us. Thank you very much.